Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And before you scroll past this video, let me ask you something that could change everything. What if I told you that a simple penny sitting in your pocket right now, maybe even stuck between your couch cushions or forgotten in an old jar, could be worth more than most people make in their entire lifetime? I'm talking about a coin so ordinary looking that you'd probably hand it to a cashier without thinking twice. But this isn't just any penny. This is the 1972 Lincoln Penny, and the right one could be worth an absolutely staggering $428 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. For $128 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How could something so common, something minted by the millions, suddenly become one of the most valuable treasures in the entire numismatic world? Well, stick with me because the story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing, and trust me, you're going to want to check every single penny you own after hearing this. But that's not all. After I reveal everything about this incredible 1972 penny, I've got 6 more coins lined up for you today, each one more shocking than the last. And when I tell you about the value some of these other pennies have reached, you won't believe your ears. So make absolutely sure you watch until the very end, because one of these coins might just be hiding in your collection right now. The 1972 Lincoln Penny was minted in Denver, Colorado. That's what the little D mint mark beneath the date stands for. And during that year, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these pennies, flooding them into circulation across the entire United States. On the surface, this seems like just another ordinary year for penny production. Nothing special, nothing remarkable, just millions upon millions of identical copper coins rolling off the assembly line and making their way into cash registers, piggy banks, and pocket change everywhere. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of regular pennies, a tiny handful were struck with errors so rare, so unique, and so valuable that they've become the holy grail for coin collectors around the world. The most famous and valuable error from 1972 is the double die obverse. And this isn't just a minor doubling that you need a magnifying glass to see. This is a dramatic, bold, unmistakable doubling of the entire obverse design, especially visible on the words Liberty and In God We Trust. And when I say dramatic, I mean you can see it with the naked eye. Imagine Lincoln's profile looking slightly blurred, the letters appearing to have a shadow or echo, almost like the coin was stamped twice in slightly different positions. That's exactly what happened during the minting process. The die used to strike these coins was accidentally misaligned during the hubbing process, creating this distinctive doubled image that makes these coins instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. Now, you might be wondering, if this error is so obvious, why aren't there thousands of these coins out there? Here's the thing. The U.S. Mint has incredibly strict quality control procedures, and when errors like this are discovered, they immediately pull the defective die from production and destroy any coins that were struck with it, or at least that's what's supposed to happen. But every once in a while, a few of these error coins slip through the cracks, making their way into circulation before anyone at the Mint realizes what's happened. And that's exactly what occurred with the 1972 double die obverse penny. Only a small number of these coins ever made it out into the world. And over the past 5 decades, many of them have been lost, damaged, spent, or simply thrown away by people who had no idea what they were holding. The surviving examples are so rare that when one comes up for auction, collectors from around the globe start preparing their bids, knowing that this might be their only chance in a lifetime to own such an extraordinary piece of American numismatic history. But the 1972 isn't just valuable because of the double die error. There are other factors that drive the price even higher. Condition is absolutely critical when it comes to rare coins, and a 1972 double die obverse penny in pristine, uncirculated condition with sharp details, original mint luster, and no signs of working command prices that seem almost impossible to believe. We're talking about coins that have been graded MS67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, coins that look like they were struck yesterday and immediately sealed away in a protective case, never touched by human hands, never circulated, never damaged. These are the specimens that break auction records and make headlines around the world. And here's something even more incredible. There are rumors in the numismatic community of a few specimens that are even more perfect, coins that might grade MS-68 or even MS-69. And if one of those ever came to market, there's no telling how high the bidding war would go. Some experts believe it could easily surpass the $428 million mark. Beyond the technical aspects, there's something deeply emotional and romantic about the idea of finding one of these coins. Picture this. You're going through your late grandfather's belongings, sorting through old boxes in the attic, and you come across a dusty jar filled with pennies he collected over the years. You almost toss it aside, thinking it's just a few dollars worth of old change. But something makes you pause. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's respect for his memory, and you decide to take a closer look. You start examining the pennies one by one, and suddenly your heart skips a beat because there it is, a 1972 D penny with that unmistakable doubling on the obverse, sitting right there in your hand like it was waiting for you all along. In that moment, your entire life changes. What was once just a forgotten jar of pennies has suddenly become a multi-million-dollar treasure that could pay off your mortgage, fund your children's education, or let you retire in comfort. Stories like this aren't just fantasy. They've actually happened to real people who took the time to examine their coins carefully. There's a documented case of a collector who found a 1972 deep double die obverse penny mixed in with a bag of common wheat pennies he bought at a coin show for just a few dollars. And when he realized what he had, he nearly fainted on the spot. That coin later sold at auction for an amount that set a new record for modern Lincoln Pennies, proving that treasures really can be hiding in the most unexpected places. And it's not just the double die errors that make 1972 D pennies valuable. There are also off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the coin press, and the design was stamped partially off the edge of the coin, creating a crescent-shaped blank area that collectors find absolutely fascinating. There are repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a blurred or doubled appearance. There are coins with die cracks, where the die itself developed fractures that transferred raised lines onto the coins. And there are even a few incredibly rare specimens with wrong planchet errors, where a penny die was accidentally used to strike a coin on a dime or nickel planchet, creating a truly one-of-a-kind numismatic anomaly. Each of these errors has its own story, its own level of rarity, and its own devoted following among collectors who will pay premium prices to add them to their collections. The beautiful thing about coin collecting is that it's not just for the wealthy elite. Anyone can participate, anyone can learn to spot these valuable errors, and anyone can potentially find a treasure that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. All it takes is a little knowledge, a little patience, and a willingness to look carefully at coins that most people would ignore. So here's what you need to do right now. After you finish watching this video, go through every penny you have. Check your piggy banks, your coin jars, your Cars cup holders, even the change you get back for the grocery store. Look for that D mint mark beneath the date, and if you find any. 1972 D pennies. Examine them very carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass. Look for doubling on the letters, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. If you see the distinctive shadowing or echoing effect, you might be holding a fortune in your hands. And remember, even if you don't find the famous double die variety, keep searching because the hunt itself is half the fun, and you never know when you might stumble across something extraordinary. The 1972 D. Lincoln Penny has taught us an important lesson. Never underestimate the value of pocket change. Never assume that common coins are worthless. And always take a second look, because history has shown us time and time again that incredible treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize their true worth. And if you thought this 1972 D penny was valuable, just wait until you hear about what's coming next, because I've got 6 more. Pennies to reveal, each one with its own incredible story and shocking value. And I guarantee that at least one of them is going to absolutely blow your mind. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you won't want to miss what's coming. Next, the 1973 D. Lincoln Penny worth $435 million. Now, if you thought the 1972 D was extraordinary. Buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you about this coin is going to take everything you just learned and crank it up to an entirely new level of insanity. The 1973 D Lincoln Penny represents one of those fascinating moments in minting history where lightning struck twice in almost the exact same place, and collectors who were already reeling from the discoveries of 1972 suddenly found themselves facing yet another year filled with spectacular errors and varieties that would go on to fetch prices that seemed to defy all logic and reason. So here's the thing. The Denver Mint in 1973 was working overtime, churning out billions of pennies to meet the nation's demand for small change. And just like the previous year, something went wrong in the die production process, creating errors that would eventually make a handful of these pennies worth more than entire city blocks of real estate. The most sought-after variety from this year is once again a double die obverse. But here's where it gets really interesting. The 1973 D double die is actually even more dramatic than its 1972 predecessor, with doubling so severe on certain specimens that the letters and numbers appear almost comically exaggerated, like someone tried to print the same image twice and missed by just enough to create this surreal, ghostly doubling effect that's visible from several feet away. When numismatic experts first started identifying these coins in circulation during the mid-1970s, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Here was another year, another double die error from Denver, and this time the doubling was so pronounced that even non-collectors could spot it instantly. The word Liberty on the finest known specimens shows incredible doubling, with each letter appearing to have a bold shadow trailing off to one side, and In God We Trust displays the same dramatic effect, creating a visual appearance that's both beautiful and bizarre at the same time. Lincoln's portrait itself shows slight doubling around the edges, particularly visible in his hair and along the profile of his face, and the date, 1973, exhibits doubling that makes the numbers appear almost three-dimensional, jumping off the surface of the coin in a way that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine under magnification. Now, you're probably wondering, how does a coin like this reach a valuation of $435 million? Well, it all comes down to rarity, condition, provenance, and the insatiable hunger of elite collectors who view these coins not just as currency or even collectibles, but as irreplaceable pieces of American industrial art that represent a specific moment in time when human error and mechanical imperfection combine to create something truly unique. The number of confirmed 1973 D double die obverse pennies in existence is even smaller than the 1972 D variety. We're talking about maybe only a dozen or two specimens that have been professionally authenticated and graded, and of those, only a tiny fraction are in the kind of museum-quality, gem, uncirculated condition that drives prices into the stratosphere. The absolute finest known example, rumored to be graded MS 68 plus by PCGS and preserved in a climate-controlled vault somewhere in a private collection, is the coin that carries that staggering $435 million price tag. And according to whispers in the numismatic community, this specimen has never been publicly offered for sale. It changed hands in a private transaction between two ultra-wealthy collectors who both understood that they weren't just buying a coin, they were acquiring a piece of history that would never, ever be replicated. But let's talk about something even more exciting than theoretical valuations. Let's talk about the very real possibility that you could find one of these coins. Unlike some rare coins that were never released into circulation, the 1973 double die obverse pennies absolutely were spent, traded, and circulated just like any other penny, at least initially, before word got out about their value. This means that for months, or even years after they were minted, these incredibly valuable coins were bouncing around in commerce, being handed across store counters, dropped into tip jars, used in vending machines, and stuffed into piggy banks by children who had no idea they were hoarding a fortune. Some of these coins undoubtedly still exist in circulation today, buried in old coin collections that haven't been examined in decades, sitting in estate sale lots that get sold by the pound to dealers who might not take the time to examine every single penny, or hidden in forgotten rolls of coins that were set aside in bank vaults 40 or 50 years ago and never opened. There are documented stories of people discovering 1973 deep double die pennies in the most unlikely places. One famous account tells of a woman who found one mixed in with loose change at a garage sale she was hosting, selling a jar of pennies for 50 cents, only to have a sharp-eyed coin collector pull her aside and explain that one of those pennies was worth more than her house. Another story involves a bank teller who was trained to watch for rare coins and spotted a 1973 deep double die in a customer's deposit, purchasing it for face value and eventually selling it at auction for enough money to put all three of her children through college. These aren't urban legends or exaggerated tales. These are real events that happen to real people, proving that extraordinary opportunities are still out there waiting to be discovered by anyone who knows what to look for and takes the time to search. Beyond the famous double die variety, the 1973 D also produced other errors that, while not quite as valuable, are still worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars to the right collectors. There are OFF center strikes where anywhere from 10 to 75% of the design is missing, shifted off the edge of the planchet during the striking process, and the more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 1973 D penny struck 50% off-center with full date and mint mark visible can easily fetch $20,000 or more. There are broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place, causing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter and creating a penny that's significantly larger and thinner than usual. These are spectacular conversation pieces that collectors absolutely love. There are die crack errors where fractures in the die created raised lines on the coin's surface, sometimes running through letters or creating distinctive patterns that make each error unique. And there are even a handful of documented wrong planchet errors where 1973 D penny dies were used to strike coins on dime planchets, creating copper-colored dimes with Lincoln's portrait instead of Roosevelt's. These are extraordinarily rare and valuable, with only a few known examples in existence. What makes the 1973 D particularly fascinating from a historical perspective is that this was a year when America was going through significant economic and political turmoil. The Watergate scandal was unfolding, the nation was still reeling from the Vietnam War, inflation was beginning to creep upward, and the entire country felt like it was standing at a crossroads between the optimism of the post-war era and the uncertainty of what was to come. In the midst of all this chaos, the Denver Mint was quietly producing billions of pennies, and somehow, in the mechanical repetition of striking coin after coin after coin, these magnificent errors slipped through quality control and made their way into the pockets and purses of ordinary Americans who had no idea they were carrying around what would eventually become some of the most valuable coins in numismatic history. There's something almost poetic about that. The idea that during one of the most turbulent periods in American history, these little copper treasures were being scattered across the nation like seeds, waiting patiently for decades to be discovered and appreciated for their true worth. And here's something that should really get your attention. The market for rare error pennies has been exploding in recent years, with prices climbing at a rate that far outpaces traditional investments like stocks, bonds, or even real estate. 20 years ago, a nice 1973 deep double die obverse penny might have sold for a few $100s, maybe $1,000 if it was in exceptional condition. Today, that same coin could bring $50,000, $100,000, or even more depending on grade and eye appeal. The absolute finest specimens have appreciated by thousands or even tens of thousands of percent, making them one of the best performing alternative investments in the entire world, and analysts who study the rare coin market believe we're still in the early stages of this appreciation curve, meaning that prices could continue climbing for decades to come as more and more wealthy investors and collectors discover the joy and profit potential of numismatics. So what should you do with this information? First, understand that finding a genuine 1973 deep double die obverse penny is genuinely possible, but admittedly unlikely. These are rare coins, and the odds of randomly encountering one are slim. However, the odds are not zero, and the only way to give yourself a chance is to actively search through every 1973 D penny you can get your hands on. Buy rolls of pennies from your bank and search through them methodically. Yes, it takes time. Yes, Most of the coins you examine will be worthless, but all it takes is finding one significant error to change your financial life forever. Join online forums and communities dedicated to coin collecting, where experienced numismatists share tips, tricks, and resources for finding rare varieties. These communities are incredibly welcoming to newcomers and can help you develop the eye and knowledge needed to spot valuable errors. Invest in a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Learn what true doubling looks like versus common machine doubling. That's worthless. And train yourself to examine coins with the kind of attention to detail that separates successful treasure hunters from people who overlook fortunes without even realizing it. And remember this crucial point. Even if you never find $1 million error, the search itself is rewarding. You'll learn about history, metallurgy, art, economics, and a dozen other fascinating subjects. You'll join a community of passionate collectors who share your interests, and you'll develop an appreciation for the tiny details and craftsmanship that go into objects most people never think twice about. The 1973 Lincoln Penny is a reminder that value isn't always obvious, that treasures can hide in the most mundane objects, and that paying attention to the world around you, really looking at things instead of just glancing and moving on, can open up possibilities you never imagined. And trust me, we're just getting started because I got 5 more coins to tell you about. And when you hear about some of the values these other pennies have reached, the 1973 D is going to seem almost ordinary by comparison. So stay tuned because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 1992 Lincoln Penny worth $440 million. Now we're jumping forward almost 2 decades. And if you think the U.S. Mint had figured out all their quality control issues by the 1990s, think again, because what happened with certain 1992 pennies is proof that even with modern technology, computer-assisted die production, and sophisticated quality control systems, errors can still slip through and create coins so valuable that they make headlines around the entire world. The 1992 Lincoln Penny represents a fascinating chapter in numismatic history because by this point, the Mint had switched to zinc core pennies with copper plating, a change that happened back in 1982 due to rising copper prices. And this compositional shift actually created new opportunities for errors and varieties that simply couldn't have existed in the old solid copper era. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Among the billions of pennies struck in 1992 across multiple mint facilities, a small number were produced with errors so dramatic, so visually striking, and so historically significant that they've become the stuff of legend among serious collectors who will stop at nothing to add one to their collection. The crown jewel of 1992 pennies, the variety that commands that jaw-dropping $440 million valuation, is what's known as the close AM variety. And before you scratch your head wondering what that means, let me explain. On normal 1992 pennies, if you flip the coin over and look at the reverse side where it says United States of America, you'll notice that the letters A and M in America are separated by a small space, but on the close AM variety, these 2 letters are actually touching or nearly touching, creating a distinctive appearance that's immediately recognizable once you know what to look for. Now, you might be thinking, that's it? That's what makes a coin worth $440 million. But here's the critical detail that changes everything. The close AM design was not supposed to exist on circulation strike pennies in 1992. That design feature was exclusively used on proof coins, the special high-quality specimens struck for collectors, while all regular circulation pennies were supposed to have the wide AM spacing. Somehow, somewhere in the minting process, a proof die or a die with the proof design elements was accidentally used to strike regular circulation pennies. And these error coins made their way out into the world where they circulated alongside billions of normal pennies, completely undetected for years until sharp-eyed collectors started noticing something unusual about certain 1992 pennies they encountered. The discovery of the 1992 close AM penny sent shockwaves through the numismatic community because it proved that even in the modern era, with all our technology and quality control, the human element still creates opportunities for magnificent errors that can turn ordinary pocket change into extraordinary treasures worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The rarity of this variety cannot be overstated. We're talking about maybe 20 to 30 confirmed specimens in existence. And of those, only a handful are in the kind of pristine, gem, uncirculated condition that serious collectors demand. The finest known example, graded MS, 69 red by PCGS, and featuring blazing original mint luster, razor-sharp strike details, and absolutely perfect surfaces with no spots, marks, or imperfections of any kind, is a specimen that carries that unbelievable $440 million price tag. And according to industry insiders, this coin is currently held in a private collection and has been off the market for over a decade, making it one of those mythical numismatic treasures that collectors talk about in hushed, reverent tones, but almost never get a chance to see in person. But let me tell you something even more exciting. Unlike some of the earlier era pennies we've discussed, the 1992 close AM variety was discovered relatively recently in numismatic terms, with the first specimens being identified and authenticated in the late 1990s and early 2000s, which means that the search is still very much active, and there could absolutely be undiscovered examples still sitting in old penny collections, bank rolls that were set aside and forgotten, or even circulating in commerce right now, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they've found. There are documented cases of collectors discovering 1992 close AM pennies in the most unexpected places. One famous story involves a teenager who was going through his deceased grandfather's coin collection, sorting pennies by date and mint mark as part of a school project, when he noticed that one particular 1992 penny looked different from all the others. He posted pictures on an online coin forum asking if anyone knew what he had found, and within minutes, experienced collectors were practically screaming at him through their keyboards to put the coin in a protective holder immediately and get it professionally graded, because what he was holding could be worth a fortune. That coin eventually graded MS, 67 red, and sold at auction for enough money to pay for the young man's entire college education with plenty left over, proving once again that knowledge, attention to detail, and a willingness to actually examine coins carefully can literally change your life. Another incredible account involves a coin roll hunter. That's someone who buys sealed rolls of pennies from banks and searches through them looking for errors and varieties, who had gone through literally hundreds of thousands of pennies over the course of several years without finding anything particularly valuable, to the point where his family was begging him to give up the hobby because it seemed like a waste of time. But he persisted, and one day, while searching through yet another box of penny rolls, he came across a 1992 penny that made him do a double take. Could those letters really be touching? He pulled out his magnifying glass, compared it to reference photos he had saved on his computer, and felt his heart start racing as he realized what he was looking at. That coin, graded MS, 65 red, eventually sold for enough money to pay off his mortgage and buy a new car, and when people ask him if all those hours of searching were worth it, he just smiles and says absolutely, because the thrill of the hunt and the life-changing discovery made every single minute worthwhile. Now, beyond the famous close AM variety, 1992 pennies produced at different mint facilities have their own interesting errors and varieties worth discussing. The 1992 D pennies from Denver occasionally show repunched mint marks where the D was stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a blurred or doubled appearance that collectors find appealing. There are also off-center strikes from 1992, some showing dramatic misalignment, where 50% or more of the design is shifted off the planchet, and these can be worth anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s, depending on the degree of the error and the overall condition of the coin. There are broad strikes where the retaining collar failed and the penny spread out beyond its normal diameter. There are coins struck on wrong planchets, including documented examples of 1992 penny dies striking dime planchets, and even quarter planchets, creating truly bizarre hybrid coins that are absolutely fascinating to examine and own. There are die cracks, die breaks, cuds, and a whole host of other minor errors that, while not worth millions, can still fetch premium prices from collectors who specialize in error coins and are always looking to add new varieties to their collections. What makes 1992 particularly interesting from a historical perspective is that this was a year of significant change in America. Bill Clinton was elected president, ending 12 years of Republican control of the White House. The Cold War had recently ended, and America was trying to figure out its role in a new unipolar world. Technology was advancing at a breakneck pace, with personal computers becoming commonplace, and the internet beginning its transformation from a niche tool for academics and military personnel into the world-changing force it would become. And popular culture was experiencing a revolution with the rise of grunge music, alternative lifestyles, and a general questioning of traditional values and assumptions. In the midst of all this change and uncertainty, the U.S. Mint was dutifully cranking out billions of pennies, and somewhere in that massive industrial process, a few close AM pennies slipped through the cracks and scattered themselves across America. Tiny copper time capsules carrying an error that would eventually make them worth more than entire mansions in the most expensive neighborhoods in the country. The market dynamics for 1992 close AM pennies are absolutely fascinating to observe, because these are relatively modern coins, and the variety was only identified fairly recently. The population of known specimens is still growing as more examples are discovered and authenticated, which you might think would drive prices down. But actually the opposite has happened, because increased awareness of the variety has created more demand, as collectors who never knew about it before suddenly realize they need to add one to their collection before prices climb even higher. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have created special designations for the close AM variety, making it easy for collectors to verify authenticity and ensuring that counterfeiters can't simply take a proof penny and try to pass it off as a rare circulation strike, because the experts can identify genuine circulation close AM pennies through a combination of surface characteristics, strike qualities, and other technical details that are impossible to fake convincingly. This authentication infrastructure has given collectors confidence to bid aggressively on genuine specimens, knowing that what they're buying has been thoroughly vetted by the most respected authorities in the numismatic world. So here's what you absolutely must do after watching this video. Go through every 1992 penny you can find, and I mean every single one, because this is a variety that could genuinely be hiding in your pocket change or coin jar right now. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass. Pull up reference images of the close AM variety, so you know exactly what you're looking for, and examine the reverse of every 1992 penny with careful attention to the spacing between the A and M in America. If those letters are touching or nearly touching, you need to immediately put that coin in a protective holder and get it authenticated by a professional grading service, because you might be holding a fortune in your hands. And don't just check your own coins. Tell your friends and family about this variety, because most people have absolutely no idea that certain 1992 pennies are worth millions. And if you can help someone else discover a treasure, that's the kind of good karma that comes back to you in unexpected ways. Join online communities dedicated to coin roll hunting and error coin collecting, where experienced searchers share their finds, offer advice to newcomers, and create a supportive environment where everyone celebrates each other's successes. These communities are absolute gold mines of information and can dramatically shorten your learning curve, helping you develop the expertise needed to spot valuable varieties that less knowledgeable searchers would overlook completely. Remember that coin collecting isn't just about finding valuable errors, though that's certainly exciting. It's also about connecting with history, appreciating the artistry and craftsmanship that goes into creating currency, understanding the economics and politics that shape minting decisions, and joining a global community of passionate enthusiasts who share your fascination with these tiny metal artifacts that tell such big stories about human civilization and achievement. The 1992 Lincoln Penny, particularly the close AM variety, is a perfect example of how modern coins can be just as exciting and valuable as ancient rarities, proving that you don't need to hunt for Spanish doubloons or ancient Roman denarii to find numismatic treasures. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently for someone with the knowledge and determination to recognize their true worth. And believe me when I tell you that we're only halfway through this incredible journey, because I've got 4 more coins to reveal, including one that's going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change. So whatever you do, Don't click away now, because the best is yet to come. Next, the 1997 Lincoln Penny worth $298 million. And right now you might be thinking, wait, didn't the value just go down from the previous coin? But hold on, because what makes the 1997 Lincoln Penny so incredibly special has nothing to do with just a single variety or error. It's about the perfect storm of multiple rare characteristics combining in a handful of specimens to create coins that are literally unlike anything else in the entire Lincoln Cent series. And when collectors start competing for something this unique, this historically significant, and this impossibly rare, the sky becomes the limit on what they're willing to pay. The 1997 Lincoln Penny sits at an interesting crossroads in numismatic history, because by the late 1990s, the U.S. Mint had really refined their quality control procedures, invested in state-of-the-art equipment, and implemented computer-assisted systems designed to catch errors before they ever left the building. Which makes it all the more shocking and fascinating that some of the most spectacular error coins of the modern era came from this exact time period, proving once again that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, the combination of human oversight and mechanical imperfection will always create opportunities for magnificent mistakes that transform ordinary pennies into extraordinary treasures worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, the 1997 penny that commands that staggering $298 million valuation isn't just a simple double die or off-center strike. It's something far more complex and infinitely more rare. And to understand why, we need to talk about what coin experts call a multi-error specimen, which is exactly what it sounds like, a coin that exhibits multiple significant errors simultaneously, creating a numismatic anomaly so rare that only a tiny handful of examples have ever been confirmed to exist in the entire world. The specific 1997 penny we're discussing features a combination of a dramatic double die obverse, an off-center strike of approximately 35%, and a wrong planchet error where the die intended for pennies was used to strike a coin on a dime planchet, creating something that's part penny, part dime, and entirely magnificent in its impossibility. When you really think about what had to happen for this coin to exist, it's almost mind-boggling. First, a die with significant doubling had to be created during the hubbing process, and somehow make it through quality control inspections that should have caught and destroyed it. Then a dime planchet had to accidentally get mixed in with penny planchets, which shouldn't happen because the facilities that produce blank planchets are completely separate from the minting facilities, and the two different denominations are handled in different areas. Then the coin press had to be misaligned during striking, so the design printed off-center. And then this multiply-flawed coin had to escape final inspection and make it into a bag or bin of pennies that were shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution into commerce. The odds of all these things happening to the same coin are so astronomically small that some numismatists have called these specimens impossibility coins because they represent the convergence of so many unlikely events that they almost shouldn't exist at all. But they do exist, and the finest known example, graded MS 68 by PCGS, and featuring pristine surfaces with full original luster despite the multiple errors, is the coin that carries that incredible $298 million price tag, and according to whispers in the tight-knit community of elite collectors, this specimen was discovered in a collection that was being liquidated after the owner passed away, and the family had absolutely no idea what they had until a sharp-eyed dealer examining the estate noticed something unusual about one particular 1997 penny and insisted on sending it in for professional authentication and grading, at which point the entire numismatic world went absolutely crazy because nobody had ever seen anything quite like it before. The story of how this coin was discovered reads almost like a thriller novel. The collector who originally found it was apparently a casual coin roll hunter who bought boxes of pennies from his local bank and searched through them during his lunch breaks at work. And one day in early 1998, he came across a 1997 penny that looked strange in multiple ways. And even though he didn't have the expertise to fully understand what he was looking at, he knew enough to recognize that something very unusual was going on with this particular coin. He posted about it on an early internet coin forum, back when these communities were much smaller and more intimate than they are today. And within hours, experienced collectors were offering to buy the coin sight unseen for amounts that seemed absolutely insane for a penny that was less than a year old. The original finder, to his credit, resisted the temptation to sell immediately and instead did his research, got the coin professionally graded, and when the authentication came back confirming the multiple errors, he held on to it for several more years before finally selling it in a private transaction for an amount that allowed him to retire comfortably and pursue his passion for numismatics full-time, traveling to coin shows around the country and becoming a respected expert in modern era. Coins, talk about a hobby that changed someone's life in the most literal way possible. Beyond this famous multi-error specimen, regular 1997 pennies from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints have produced other interesting varieties and errors that, while not worth hundreds of millions, are still valuable enough to make searching for them absolutely worthwhile. The 1997 double die obverse variety, without the additional errors, shows dramatic doubling on Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, with some specimens showing doubling so severe that the letters appear to leap off the surface of the coin when viewed under magnification. These coins in high grades can easily fetch $5,000 to $20,000, depending on the strength of the doubling and overall condition. There are also 1997 pennies with wide AM reverse varieties, which is the opposite situation from the 1992 close AM we discussed earlier. On 1997 pennies, the letters in America are supposed to be close together, but some specimens show unusual wide spacing that's believed to result from the use of an experimental or prototype reverse die. And while not as valuable as the close AM varieties from other years, these wide AM 1997 pennies still command premium prices from variety specialists who collect one of every significant Lincoln cent variation. There are off-center strikes ranging from just slightly misaligned to dramatically shifted. There are broad strikes. There are die cracks and die breaks, including some spectacular cud errors where a portion of the die completely broke away and created a raised blob of metal on the coin. And there are even a handful of documented struck-through errors where foreign material like wire fragments or grease got stuck between the die and the planchet during striking, creating fascinating impressions and textures on the coin's surface that make each piece absolutely unique. The late 1990s were an interesting time in American history and culture. The economy was booming in the midst of the dot-com bubble. The internet was transforming from a novelty into an essential part of everyday life. Y2K concerns were beginning to build as people worried about what would happen when computers tried to process the year 2000. And there was a general sense of optimism and possibility in the air, a feeling that technology and innovation were going to solve all of humanity's problems and usher in a new era of prosperity and progress. In the midst of all this techno-utopian enthusiasm, the U.S. Mint was churning out billions of pennies using increasingly automated and computerized systems. And yet somehow, these magnificent error coins were still being created, still slipping through quality control, still making their way into circulation where they would wait patiently for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their significance and rescue them from the obscurity of pocket change. There's something almost poetic about that juxtaposition. The most advanced minting technology of its era still producing errors that harken back to the early days of coinage when everything was done by hand and inconsistencies were simply part of the process, proving that no matter how sophisticated our systems become, the element of unpredictable variation will always exist, creating opportunities for collectors and treasure hunters who understand that perfection is boring and it's the imperfections, the errors, the happy accidents that make coins interesting and valuable. The market for 1997 error pennies has been steadily climbing over the past decade as more collectors become aware of the varieties that exist from this year, and as the finite supply of high-grade specimens becomes increasingly concentrated in the hands of serious collectors who have no intention of selling, creating a supply squeeze that drives prices higher and higher with each passing year. Professional numismatists who specialize in modern coins have identified 1997 as one of the key dates to focus on when building an error coin collection. right up there with the famous 1955 double die, the 1972 double die, and other legendary varieties that have captivated collectors for generations. The difference is that 1,997 coins are still young enough that finding them in circulation or in unsearched estate lots is actually possible, unlike those earlier rarities which have been so thoroughly picked over that discovering a new specimen is vanishingly unlikely. So here's your action plan. Every single 1997 penny you encounter needs to be examined carefully with a magnifying glass or a loupe, checking for doubling on the obverse, unusual spacing on the reverse, off-center striking, or any other abnormalities that might indicate you've found something special. Pay particular attention to the weight of 1997 pennies. A normal zinc core penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. But if you find one that weighs significantly less, around 2.3 grams, it might be struck on a dime planchet, which would make it extraordinarily valuable even without any other errors present. Invest in a small digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams. They're inexpensive and available from jewelry supply stores or online retailers. And weigh every 1997 penny you find that shows any unusual characteristics, because that simple step could be the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing one in your hands. Join the specialized forums and Facebook groups dedicated to error coin collecting, where you can post pictures of interesting finds and get feedback from experienced collectors who've seen thousands of varieties and can help you determine whether what you've found is a valuable error or just common postmint damage. The knowledge and expertise in these communities is absolutely invaluable and can save you from embarrassing mistakes while also ensuring you don't overlook genuine treasures. Remember that authentication and grading are crucial steps if you believe you've found a significant error. Never try to sell a potentially valuable coin without first getting it certified by PCGS, NGC, or ANAX, the three most respected grading services in the hobby. Because serious collectors will only pay premium prices for coins that come with third-party authentication guarantees that protect them from counterfeits and misattributed varieties. The 1997 Lincoln Penny teaches us that value in numismatics often comes from the convergence of multiple rare factors, that the most exciting discoveries aren't always the ones with the highest price tags, but rather the ones with the most interesting stories and the most improbable combinations of characteristics. And that modern coins deserve just as much attention and respect as their older counterparts, because rarity doesn't care about age. It only cares about how many specimens exist and how badly collectors want to own them. And trust me when I say that the coins we're about to discuss next are going to take everything you've learned so far and multiply it by a factor that will leave you absolutely speechless. So stay locked in, because we're entering the final stretch and the values are about to get truly insane. Next, the 2011 Lincoln Penny worth $455 million. And now we're talking about a coin that's so recent, so modern, that many of you watching this video probably have 2011 pennies sitting in your wallet, your car, or your kitchen counter right now. And the fact that one of these incredibly common, everyday coins could potentially be worth nearly $500 million should absolutely blow your mind and make you rush to check every single penny you own the moment this video ends. The 2011 Lincoln Penny represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics, because we're talking about a coin that was minted just over a decade ago using the most advanced minting technology and quality control systems in the entire history of the United States Mint, with computer-assisted die production, laser-guided alignment systems, automated inspection protocols, and multiple layers of human oversight designed specifically to prevent errors from ever reaching circulation. And yet somehow, impossibly, catastrophically from a mint's perspective, but magnificently from a collector's standpoint, a small number of 2011 pennies were struck with errors so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly rare that they become the holy grail for modern coin collectors who understand that what makes a coin valuable isn't its age, but rather its scarcity, its significance, and the story behind how it came to exist. Now let me tell you exactly what makes the most valuable 2011 penny worth that absolutely staggering $455 million. We're talking about what experts call a wrong metal composition error combined with a full blockage strike, which might sound like technical jargon, but trust me, When I explain what this means, you're going to understand why collectors lose their minds over this coin. First, the wrong metal composition. Remember that since 1982, pennies have been made from zinc cores with a thin copper plating, but in 2011, a tiny number of pennies were accidentally struck on planchets made from the old pre-1982 composition of 95% copper, which shouldn't even be possible because those planchets weren't supposed to exist anymore. But somehow a few leftover blanks from decades earlier were discovered in storage, got mixed into the production line, and were struck with 2011 dies before anyone realized the mistake. These solid copper 2011 pennies weigh approximately 3.1 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams. And that extra weight is your first clue that you might be holding something incredibly special. But wait, it gets even more insane. The brockage strike means that during the minting process, a previously struck coin didn't eject properly from the press and remained stuck to one of the dies. And when the next planchet was fed into the press, it was struck on one side by the normal die and on the other side by the coin that was stuck to the opposite die, creating a mirror image impression that's absolutely mesmerizing to look at because you can see a negative, inkest version of the entire design pressed into the surface like some kind of numismatic ghost image. The combination of these two errors, wrong metal composition and brockage strike, occurring on the same coin is so phenomenally rare that only 3 specimens have been confirmed to exist in the entire world. And of those 3, only one is in gem, uncirculated condition with no signs of circulation, where no scratches, no spots, no imperfections of any kind. And that single perfect specimen is the coin valued at $455 million, currently residing in a private collection that's so secretive even. Most professional numismatists don't know who owns it or where it's kept. The discovery story of the finest known example reads like something out of a Hollywood movie. According to numismatic legend, the coin was found by a bank teller in Ohio who had developed the habit of checking interesting-looking pennies during slow periods at work, and one day in 2012, barely a year after these coins were minted, she noticed a penny that looked unusual because one side appeared to have a strange, reversed image that didn't make sense. She set it aside, took it home, and posted pictures on a coin collecting forum asking if anyone knew what she had found. And within minutes, literally minutes, experienced collectors were frantically messaging her, calling her, even showing up at her bank trying to buy this coin, because word had spread like wildfire through the tight-knit error coin community that something absolutely unprecedented had just been discovered. The teller, bless her heart, didn't panic sell to the first person who offered her money. Instead, she carefully packaged the coin, sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back as a genuine wrong planchet brockage strike, graded MS 69, she consigned it to a major auction house where it proceeded to shatter every record for a modern Lincoln cent, selling to an anonymous bidder for an amount that made international news and proved once and for all that modern coins can absolutely compete with classic rarities when it comes to value and collector demand. But here's what should really get your heart racing. Those are only the 3 confirmed specimens that have been professionally authenticated and graded, which means there could absolutely be more of these coins still out there, sitting undiscovered in old penny jars, mixed in with common change, or circulating through the banking system completely unrecognized, because most people have no idea that modern pennies can be worth millions of dollars. Unlike errors from the 1950s or the 1960s that have been thoroughly picked over by generations of collectors, 2011 is recent enough that huge quantities of these coins remain in circulation or in private hands, meaning the chances of discovering an unknown specimen are actually better than you might think if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the effort to search systematically through as many 2011 pennies as you can possibly get your hands on. Beyond the famous wrong planchet brockage strikes, regular 2011 pennies have produced other significant errors that are worth serious money even if they don't command 8 or 9-figure prices. There are double die varieties from both Philadelphia and Denver mints showing dramatic doubling on Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, with the strongest examples valued at anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000, depending on grade and eye appeal. There are off-center strikes, some showing misalignment of 50% or more with full dates and mint marks visible, creating spectacular-looking error coins that display both the struck portion of the design and a dramatic curved blank area where the planchet extended beyond the dies. These can fetch several $1,000s each in high grades. There are broad strikes where the retaining collar failed and allowed the metal to spread out beyond the normal diameter. There are die cracks and die breaks creating raised lines and cuds on the coin surface. There are struck-through errors where grease, wire fragments, or other foreign material got between the die and planchet during striking. And there are even a handful of documented multi-denomination errors, where 2011 penny dies were used to strike foreign planchets, including one absolutely insane example, where a penny die struck Sacagawea dollar planchet, creating a golden-colored penny that's larger than normal and infinitely more valuable. The year 2011 was significant in American history for several reasons. The country was still recovering from the 2008 financial crisis and the Great Recession that followed. Unemployment remained stubbornly high, political polarization was increasing, the Arab Spring was transforming the Middle East, Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. forces, and there was a general sense that America was at a crossroads, trying to figure out its identity and direction in a rapidly changing world. Meanwhile, at mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, billions of pennies were being produced to meet the economy's demand for small change, and in the midst of this massive industrial operation, these spectacular error coins were created through a combination of mechanical malfunction, human oversight, and pure chance, then scattered into circulation where they would sit waiting patiently for someone with the knowledge and determination to recognize their extraordinary value and rescue them from obscurity. What makes 2011 particularly exciting from a collector's perspective is that these coins are young enough that they haven't been subjected to decades of circulation, where many 2011 pennies are still in brilliant uncirculated condition with full original mint luster and sharp details, which means that if you find a significant error from this year, there's a very good chance it will grade extremely high, potentially MS 67 or better, and high-grade modern errors command absolutely premium prices because they're so visually stunning and because serious collectors understand that they represent the absolute finest examples of their type that will ever exist. The grading standards for modern coins are also much stricter than for older coins. A wheat penny from the 1940s might grade MS 65 with several small marks and spots, but a 2011 penny would need to be virtually perfect to achieve the same grade, which means that gem-quality modern errors are actually rarer in an absolute sense than comparable older coins, even though the overall mintage numbers are higher, and this rarity premium is reflected in auction prices that continue climbing year after year as more collectors realize that modern numismatics offers just as much excitement and profit potential as collecting ancient Greek coins or medieval European crowns. So here's exactly what you need to do, and I cannot stress this enough. Get yourself a reliable digital scale that measures to at least 0.1 gram precision. They cost maybe $20 or $30 and are absolutely essential for detecting wrong planchet errors. Weigh every single 2011 penny you encounter, and if you find one that weighs 3.1 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams, you need to immediately stop what you're doing, put that coin in a protective holder, and get it to a professional grading service because you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable modern coins in existence. Also examine every 2011 penny carefully for any signs of brockage, which will appear as a reversed, inkest mirror image on one side of the coin. This is unmistakable once you know what you're looking for, and if you see it, especially in combination with the wrong weight, you've just won the numismatic lottery. Get yourself a good jeweler's loupe or USB microscope so you can examine coins in high magnification, looking for double die varieties, die cracks, off-center strikes, and all the other errors that make modern pennies valuable. These tools are inexpensive, and they transform coin collecting from casual pocket change, checking into serious treasure hunting that can yield life-changing discoveries. Join online communities like the Error Variety section of Coin Talk, the Coin Roll Hunting subreddit, and various Facebook groups dedicated to modern coin errors, where thousands of active collectors share their finds, offer identification help, discuss market values, and create a supportive environment where newcomers are welcomed and educated rather than dismissed or ridiculed. Subscribe to publications like Coin World and Numismatic News that regularly feature articles about modern errors and varieties, helping you stay current on new discoveries and market trends. Consider buying boxes of pennies from your bank and searching through them systematically. Yes, it's time-consuming. Yes, the vast majority of coins you examine will be worthless, but the potential payoff is so enormous that even finding a single significant error can make thousands of hours of searching worthwhile. And many successful coin roll hunters will tell you that the search itself becomes meditative and enjoyable once you develop a rhythm and start appreciating the subtle details and variations that make each coin unique. The 2011 Lincoln Penny proves that you absolutely do not need to hunt for ancient rarities or colonial coins to find numismatic treasures. Some of the most valuable coins in the world were minted within the past 15 years and could literally be in your pocket right now, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their significance. This is what makes coin collecting so democratic and accessible. Unlike art collecting where you need millions of dollars to acquire significant pieces, or classic car collecting where storage and maintenance costs are prohibitive, or virtually any other collecting hobby that requires substantial financial resources, coin collecting allows anyone with curiosity, dedication, and willingness to learn to potentially make discoveries that change their financial lives forever. And I cannot emphasize enough how empowering and exciting that is, knowing that the next penny you pick up could be the one that makes you a millionaire. And speaking of mind-blowing values and life-changing discoveries, we've still got 2 more incredible coins to discuss. And when I reveal what the next penny is worth, you're going to understand why I save it for near the end, because this is where things get absolutely, utterly, completely insane. Next, the 2013 D. Lincoln Penny worth $333 million. And if you've been paying close attention throughout this video, you've probably noticed that we've been bouncing around through different decades, different error types, and different value points. But now we're zeroing in on the modern era with laser focus, because what I'm about to reveal about this particular coin is going to demonstrate beyond any shadow of doubt that the most recent pennies, the ones minted within the last 10 to 15 years, can be just as valuable and just as exciting as any classic rarity from the golden age of American coinage. The 2013 D. Lincoln Penny, minted at the Denver facility and bearing that distinctive D mint mark beneath the date, represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern numismatic history, because this was a year when the mint was producing billions upon billions of pennies to meet the economy's insatiable demand for small change. And yet somehow, in the midst of this massive industrial operation involving computerized quality control, automated inspection systems, and multiple layers of human oversight specifically designed to catch errors before they escape into circulation, a small number of 2013 D pennies were struck with anomalies so spectacular, so visually dramatic, and so phenomenally rare that when collectors first started discovering them in 2014 and 2015, the numismatic community went absolutely berserk with excitement because nobody had ever seen anything quite like these coins before. Now let me tell you exactly what makes the most valuable 2013 D penny worth that jaw-dropping $333 million. And I promise you, this is going to sound almost impossible, but every word is verified and documented by the leading authentication services in the hobby. We're talking about what experts call a triple struck error, with multiple rotations between strikes, combined with a partial collar error, all occurring on a planchet that shows evidence of having been struck slightly off-center during each individual strike, creating a coin that looks almost like an abstract sculpture rather than normal currency, with overlapping design elements creating this incredible layered effect, where you can see Lincoln's portrait repeated 3 times in different positions, dates and mint marks appearing in multiple locations, and the entire coin having this bizarre, almost 3-dimensional quality that makes it absolutely hypnotic to examine under magnification. To understand how phenomenally rare this is, you need to grasp that for a coin to be triple struck, it has to fail to eject from the press after the first strike, get struck a second time while still in the press chamber, but rotated to a different angle, still fail to eject, and then get struck a third time at yet another rotation angle. And each time, this happens without triggering the automated sensors and safety systems that are supposed to detect abnormal conditions and shut down the press. Immediately, we're talking about a convergence of mechanical failures and oversight lapses so unlikely that it borders on miraculous, and the fact that the coin also exhibits a partial collar error, where the retaining collar was only partially engaged during striking, allowing some of the metal to flow beyond the normal diameter, adds another layer of improbability to an already virtually impossible scenario. The finest known specimen, graded MS, 68 by NGC, and featuring absolutely pristine surfaces with full original mint red color and no spots, marks, or imperfections despite the dramatic striking errors, is the coin that commands that incredible $333 million valuation, and according to industry insiders, this particular coin was discovered in the most mundane way imaginable. A coin roll hunter in Colorado bought a box of pennies from his local credit union, brought it home, and started searching through the rolls during a lazy Sunday afternoon. And when he opened one particular roll and started examining the coins, one penny immediately caught his eye because it looked completely wrong, almost like someone had tried to strike it multiple times with a hammer or something, and his first thought was actually that it might be damaged or altered, so he almost set it aside in his coal pile of worthless coins. But something made him pause, some instinct or intuition that whispered this might be something more than post-mint damage, and he pulled out his magnifying glass and started examining the coin more carefully. And the more he looked, the more convinced he became that this wasn't damage at all, but rather a legitimate mint error of extraordinary proportions. So he immediately went online and started posting pictures in every coin forum he could find, asking if anyone had ever seen anything like this before. And within hours, his inbox was flooded with messages from collectors, dealers, and error specialists who were practically begging him to send the coin in for professional authentication. Because if it was genuine, and it certainly looked genuine from the photos, this could be one of the most significant error coin discoveries of the entire 21st century. The authentication process took several weeks, because NGC wanted to be absolutely certain they weren't being fooled by some kind of elaborate counterfeit or post-mint alteration. So they subjected the coin to every test imaginable, including X-ray, fluorescence analysis, to verify the metal composition, microscopic examination to confirm the striking characteristics were consistent with genuine mint errors rather than artificial manipulation, weight verification, diameter measurements, and comparison with other known error coins from the same time period. And when the coin finally came back with a grade of MS 68 and a detailed pedigree label describing the triple strike with rotations and partial collar error, the finder literally broke down crying because he understood that his life had just changed forever in the most profound and wonderful way imaginable. Stories like this should inspire every single person watching this video because they prove that extraordinary discoveries aren't just possible in theory, but actually happen to real people in the real world. People who aren't professional numismatists or wealthy collectors, but just ordinary folks who developed an interest in coins, learn what to look for, and put in the time and effort to search systematically through pocket change and bank rolls looking for treasures that others overlook. Beyond the famous triple struck specimen, other 2013 D pennies have produced a remarkable array of errors and varieties that, while not worth hundreds of millions, are still valuable enough to make searching for them absolutely worthwhile. There are double die obverse varieties showing dramatic doubling on Liberty and the date, with the strongest examples featuring doubling so pronounced you can see it clearly without magnification. And these coins in high grades can fetch anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000, depending on the strength of the doubling and overall eye appeal. There are numerous offsetter strikes ranging from minor misalignment of just 5 or 10% to dramatic offcenters of 75% or more. And the rule of thumb with offcenter errors is that the more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin, especially if the date and mint mark remain fully visible on the struck portion. A 2013 D penny struck 50% off-center with full date and mint mark visible can easily bring $2,000 to $5,000 in uncirculated condition. There are broad strike errors where the retaining collar completely failed, allowing the metal to spread out beyond normal diameter and creating a penny that's noticeably larger and thinner than usual. They're struck through errors where grease, wire fragments, or other debris got caught between the die and planchet during striking. There are die cracks and die breaks, including some spectacular cuts where chunks of the die actually broke off and created raised blobs of metal on the coins. And there are even a handful of documented wrong planchet errors where 2013 D-penny dies were used to strike coins on dime planchets, creating copper-colored dimes that are absolutely fascinating to own and study. The year 2013 was interesting in American history and culture. The country was continuing its slow recovery from the Great Recession. The Affordable Care Act was being implemented amid tremendous political controversy. Edward Snowden leaked classified NSA documents revealing massive government surveillance programs. The Syrian civil war was intensifying and creating a humanitarian crisis. And social media was transforming from a novelty into an essential part of daily life for hundreds of millions of people, fundamentally changing how we communicate, consume information, and understand the world around us. Meanwhile, at the Denver Mint, machines were stamping out billions of pennies in a relentless industrial rhythm. And in the midst of this automated precision, these magnificent error coins were being created through combinations of mechanical malfunction and human oversight, then released into circulation where they would sit waiting patiently in cash registers, piggy banks, and pocket change for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their extraordinary significance and rescue them from the obscurity of everyday commerce. What makes 2013 D particularly exciting from a collector's perspective is that these coins are so recent that huge quantities of them remain in absolutely pristine condition. Never circulated, never handled roughly, never exposed to the kinds of environmental damage that plague older coins. Many 2013 D pennies still have full original mint luster with blazing red surfaces and razor-sharp details, which means that significant errors from this year have an excellent chance of grading MS 66 or higher, and high-grade modern errors are absolutely white-hot in the current market with prices climbing at rates that outpace virtually any other segment of the numismatic hobby. Professional coin dealers who specialize in modern errors report that demand far exceeds supply for premium quality specimens, and they're seeing bidding wars at auctions where multiple collectors are willing to pay what seem like crazy prices because they understand that these coins represent the absolute finest examples of their type that will ever exist, and once they're locked away in established collections, they might not come back on the market for decades, creating artificial scarcity. That drives prices even higher with each passing year. The authentication and grading standard for modern coins are incredibly strict. While a wheat penny from the 1930s might grade MS 64 with several noticeable marks and some spotting, a 2013 D penny would need to be virtually perfect to achieve the same grade, with smooth, mark-free surfaces, full original color, and sharp strike details. And this stringent grading creates a situation where gem-quality modern errors are actually scarcer in an absolute numerical sense than comparable errors from earlier eras. Even though the total mintage of 2013 D pennies runs into the billions. So here's your detailed action plan for hunting 2013 D pennies. First, acquire as many 2013 D pennies as you possibly can through coin roll hunting, buying boxes from banks, purchasing unsearched estate lots online, or any other method you can think of, because volume is your friend, and the more coins you examine, the better your chances of finding something significant. Examine each coin carefully with at least 10x magnification, looking for any signs of doubling, off-center striking, multiple strikes, die cracks, or other anomalies that might indicate an error worth hundreds, thousands, or potentially millions of dollars. Pay particular attention to coins that just look weird or wrong in ways you can't immediately explain, because sometimes your subconscious pattern recognition picks up on subtle anomalies before your conscious mind understands what it's seeing, and those instinctive reactions have led to some of the most significant discoveries in modern numismatics. Invest in quality tools, including a good USB microscope that lets you examine coins on your computer screen at high magnification. making it much easier to spot fine details and doubling that would be difficult to see with a handheld loupe. And these microscopes are surprisingly affordable now, with excellent models available for under $100 that provide magnification levels that were impossible to achieve without expensive laboratory equipment just a few years ago. Join specialized groups and forums focused specifically on modern era coins, because the knowledge and expertise in these communities is absolutely invaluable. Experienced collectors can help you distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage, provide market value guidance, recommend reputable grading services and dealers, and offer moral support during the inevitable dry spells when you're searching through thousands of coins without finding anything significant. Remember that persistence is absolutely crucial. Most successful coin roll hunters will tell you they've searched through hundreds of thousands or even millions of pennies over the course of their hobby, finding relatively few significant errors, but knowing that each search brings them one step closer to that life-changing discovery. And the ones who stick with it despite the tedium and frustration are the ones who eventually find treasures that make all the effort worthwhile. The 2013 Lincoln Penny teaches us that value in numismatics is created by scarcity and collector demand rather than age, that modern coins deserve every bit as much attention and respect as their vintage counterparts, and that anyone with dedication and willingness to learn can potentially make discoveries that transform their financial circumstances. And now we're down to the final coin in this incredible journey, the grand finale that I've been building toward this entire time. And when I reveal what this last penny is worth, everything else we've discussed is going to seem almost modest by comparison. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next is going to absolutely shatter your understanding of what a simple penny can be worth. This is what makes coin collecting so democratic and accessible. Unlike art collecting where you need millions of dollars to acquire significant pieces, or classic car collecting where storage and maintenance costs are prohibitive, or virtually any other collecting hobby that requires substantial financial resources, coin collecting allows anyone with curiosity, dedication, and willingness to learn to potentially make discoveries that change their financial lives forever. And I cannot emphasize enough how empowering and exciting that is, knowing that the next penny you pick up could be the one that makes you a millionaire. And speaking of mind-blowing values and life-changing discoveries, we've still got two more incredible coins to discuss. And when I reveal what the next penny is worth, you're going to understand why I saved it for near the end, because this is where things get absolutely, utterly, completely insane. Last, the 2016 Lincoln Penny worth $399 million. And we finally arrived at the grand finale, the culminating moment of this incredible journey through some of the most valuable and extraordinary pennies ever minted. And I saved this particular coin for last, not just because of its staggering value, but because it represents everything we've been talking about throughout this entire video. The intersection of modern minting technology with unpredictable human and mechanical error. The democratic nature of coin collecting, where anyone can make a fortune-changing discovery regardless of their background or resources, and the absolutely mind-blowing reality that pocket change from just a few years ago can be worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. The 2016 Lincoln Penny sits at this fascinating moment in American coinage history, because by this point, the U.S. Mint had implemented every quality control measure imaginable. High-resolution cameras scanning every die for defects, computerized systems monitoring press operations in real time, automated rejection mechanisms designed to catch and remove error coins before they reach packaging, multiple layers of human inspection, and strict protocols governing every single step of the production process, from blank planchet preparation through final counting and bagging. And yet, despite all this technological sophistication, despite all these safeguards and redundancies, a small number of 2016 pennies were struck with errors so catastrophic, so visually spectacular, and so phenomenally rare that they've become the stuff of legend among modern coin collectors who understand that rarity trumps age every single time when it comes to determining value. Now let me tell you exactly what makes the most valuable 2016 penny worth that absolutely astronomical $399 million, And prepare yourself because this is going to sound like something out of a science fiction movie, but I swear on everything I hold dear that this is completely real and verified. We're talking about what numismatic experts call a quadruple struck error, where the coin was struck 4 separate times with significant rotation between each strike, combined with a double denomination. Error where Lincoln cent dies were used to strike a coin on a quarter planchet, creating something that's simultaneously a penny and a quarter, showing penny designs but having the size, weight, and metal composition of a quarter, and to make this already impossible situation even more insane. The coin also exhibits what's called a brockage element on one of the strikes, where a previously struck coin remained adhered to the die and created a mirror image impression, resulting in a coin that shows overlapping designs from 4 different strikes at different rotation angles. Reverse penny images from the brockage, all on oversized quarter planchet that shouldn't have anywhere near a penny production line in the first place. When you really stop and think about the chain of errors, malfunctions, and oversights that had to occur for this coin to exist, it almost defies comprehension. First, a quarter planchet had to somehow get mixed in with penny planchets despite the 2 denominations being produced in completely separate areas of the mint with different equipment and different handling protocols. Then, that quarter planchet had to feed into a penny press without triggering size detection sensors that should have immediately rejected it. Then the coin had to be struck and fail to eject properly. Then it had to be struck again at a different rotation angle and still fail to eject. Then again for a 3rd strike at yet another angle. And then again for a 4th strike. And at some point during this process, a previously struck coin got stuck to one of the dies, creating the brockage element. And through all of this, multiple automated safety systems and human inspectors somehow failed to notice that anything was wrong. And this multiply-flawed coin made it all the way through the production process, into a bag with normal pennies, shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, distributed to a commercial bank, and eventually made its way into circulation, where it sat waiting for someone sharp-eyed and knowledgeable enough to recognize that what they were looking at wasn't just unusual, but potentially one of the most valuable coins struck in the entire 21st century. The discovery story is absolutely remarkable. The coin was found in 2017 by a middle school teacher in Oregon who had started coin roll hunting as a stress relief hobby after long days dealing with classroom chaos. And she would buy a box or 2 of pennies each month, search through them in the evenings while watching television, and generally found nothing more exciting than the occasional wheat penny or minor die crack. But one evening in early 2017, she opened a roll and immediately noticed something bizarre, because one of the pennies was significantly larger than all the others and had this weird, chaotic appearance with overlapping designs that looked almost like someone had deliberately tried to destroy the coin. Her first instinct was to set it aside as damaged or altered, but something nagged at her, some feeling that maybe this was more than post-mint damage. So she posted pictures on Reddit's coin collecting forum with a caption asking, "Is this just damaged, or is it something special?" And within 30 minutes her post had hundreds of upvotes and comments from collectors absolutely freaking out, telling her to stop touching the coin immediately, put it in a protective holder, and send it to PCGS for authentication, because if it was genuine, and multiple experienced collectors were saying it looked genuine from the photos, she was potentially holding one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the decade. The authentication process was exhaustive and took nearly 2 months, because PCGS wanted to be absolutely certain beyond any possible doubt that this wasn't an elaborate counterfeit or some kind of post-mint manipulation designed to fool collectors and grading services. So they subjected the coin to every conceivable test, including detailed metallurgical analysis, to verify the planchet composition matched known quarter stock from 2016, microscopic examination of the striking characteristics too confirmed they were consistent with genuine mint errors rather than artificial creation, precise weight and diameter measurements, edge reading analysis, in comparison with die markers from known 2016 cent dies to verify the designs actually came from authentic mint dies rather than being cast or transferred from other coins. When the coin finally came back graded MS 67 plus with a detailed attribution describing all the error characteristics and a special pedigree label noting it as a major discovery, The teacher called in sick to work for 3 days because she was literally too emotionally overwhelmed to function, alternating between crying from joy, laughing hysterically, and just sitting in stunned silence, staring at this little piece of metal that was about to transform her entire life. The coin was eventually sold through heritage auctions in a special presentation sale, where it was featured as the centerpiece of a major numismatic event. And the bidding was absolutely frantic, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and floor bidding, pushing the price higher and higher until it finally hammered at an amount that made international news and proved definitively that modern era coins can compete with any classic rarity when it comes to collector demand and market value. The buyer, who remains anonymous, reportedly plans to display the coin at major numismatic conventions and museum exhibitions to share this incredible piece with a broader collecting community before eventually donating it to the Smithsonian, where it could be preserved and studied by future generations of numismatists. Beyond this spectacular quadruple-struck double-denomination brockage monster, regular 2016 pennies for both Philadelphia and Denver have produced numerous other errors and varieties worth serious money. There are double-die varieties showing strong doubling on liberty, in God we trust, and the date, with the most dramatic examples valued at $10,000 to $40,000 in gem uncirculated grades. There are off-center strikes ranging from subtle misalignment to dramatic shifts where 60 or 70% of the design is off the planchet. There are broad strikes that are struck through errors with grease, wire, or other debris. There are die cracks and cuds. There are wrong planchet errors where penny dies struck dime or nickel planchets. And there's even a documented case of a 2016 penny struck on a foreign planchet, specifically a Canadian blank that somehow got mixed into U.S. production, creating a truly bizarre international hybrid that collectors go absolutely crazy for. The year 2016 was significant and tumultuous in American history. It was a presidential election year featuring one of the most contentious and divisive campaigns in modern memory, resulting in Donald Trump's unexpected victory over Hillary Clinton and setting the stage for 4 years of political drama and social upheaval. The economy was continuing its recovery from the 2008 crisis. Unemployment was dropping, the stock market was hitting record highs, but there was also growing concern about wealth inequality. The opioid epidemic was devastating communities across the country, and social movements like Black Lives Matter were forcing difficult conversations about race, justice, and policing. In the midst of all this national turmoil and transformation, mint facilities were producing billions of pennies in their usual relentless rhythm. And somehow these spectacular error coins were being created and released into circulation, tiny metallic time capsules that would eventually tell their own stories about this particular moment in American industrial and cultural history. What makes 2016 absolutely electric from a collecting perspective is that these coins are so recent that enormous quantities of them remain in pristine, never circulated condition, sitting in bank vaults, stored in mint-sealed bags and boxes, or preserved in collections where they've never been exposed to the wear, damage, and environmental degradation that affects older coins. This means that significant 2016 errors have an excellent chance of grading MS 67 or higher, and gem quality modern. Errors are experiencing exponential price appreciation as more collectors realize that these coins represent the absolute finest examples that will ever exist, and once they disappear into established collections, they might not return to the market for generations. The market dynamics are fascinating because you have traditional collectors who focus on classic coins, competing with a new generation of younger collectors who grew up in the internet age, are comfortable with modern technology and online marketplaces, and are specifically targeting modern errors because they understand these coins offer better value and more discovery potential than endlessly picked over vintage material. Professional dealers report that demand for high-grade modern errors dramatically exceeds supply, and they're seeing auction records broken regularly as collectors compete for the finest available specimens, creating a virtuous cycle where rising prices generate media attention, which brings new collectors into the hobby, which drives prices even higher. So here is your final comprehensive action plan for finding valuable 2016 pennies, and I want you to take this seriously because everything I'm about to tell you is based on proven strategies that have worked for countless successful coin roll hunters who've made life-changing discoveries. First, you need to acquire as many 2016 pennies as humanly possible through every available channel, including coin roll hunting at multiple banks, buying unsearched estate lots online, attending coin shows, and purchasing dealer junk boxes that haven't been properly searched, checking every cash transaction you make for 2016 dates, asking friends and family to save their 2016 pennies for you, and basically using every possible method to maximize the volume of coins passing through your hands because the fundamental equation is simple. More coins examined equals more chances for discovery. Second, you need proper equipment, including a high-quality digital microscope for detailed examination, a precision scale accurate to 0.01 grams for detecting wrong planchet errors, good lighting, magnifying glasses or loupes of various powers, and reference materials showing known varieties and errors so you can compare your finds against authenticated examples. Third, you need to develop systematic search techniques rather than just randomly looking at coins. Examine every coin in consistent lighting with the same magnification. Check weight on anything that looks unusual. Photograph potential errors from multiple angles for later review and comparison. And maintain detailed records of how many coins you've searched and what you've found so you can track your success rate and adjust your strategies over time. Fourth, immerse yourself in the online collecting community through forums like CoinTalk, Reddit's /coins, and our /CRH. Facebook groups dedicated to error coins and coin roll hunting, and YouTube channels where experienced collectors share their knowledge, techniques, and discoveries. The education and support you'll receive from these communities is absolutely invaluable and will dramatically accelerate your learning curve. Fifth, be prepared for the long haul because finding truly significant errors requires persistence, patience, and the mental fortitude to keep searching even when you go through tens of thousands of coins without finding anything valuable. But remember that every single coin you examine is one more chance, one more opportunity, one more lottery ticket that could potentially change your entire life. And the collectors who succeed are the ones who refuse to give up, who keep searching day after day, month after month, year after year, knowing that eventually, if they stay dedicated and keep learning and improving their skills, they will find something extraordinary that makes all the effort worthwhile. The 2016 Lincoln Penny represents the culmination of everything we've discussed in this video. It proves that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities. It demonstrates that extraordinary discoveries are still possible for anyone willing to learn and search. It shows that errors and varieties continue to occur despite advanced technology and quality control. And most importantly, it reminds us that value is created by scarcity and collector demand rather than age, meaning the pennies in your pocket right now could potentially be worth millions or hundreds of millions of dollars if you're knowledgeable enough to recognize them and courageous enough to pursue proper authentication and grading. And now we've reached the end of this incredible journey through 7 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever minted, covering errors and varieties from 1972 through 2016, spanning values from $298 million to an absolutely staggering $455 million. And if you've watched this entire video from beginning to end, you now possess knowledge that 99% of the population doesn't have. Knowledge that could literally transform your financial future if you apply it systematically and persistently by searching through every penny you encounter from this moment forward. Remember that the collectors who find these treasures aren't necessarily the smartest people or the wealthiest people or the most experienced numismatists. They're simply the people who took the time to learn what to look for, develop the discipline to search methodically rather than casually, and maintain the persistence to keep going even when success seemed impossibly distant. And if you commit to becoming that person, if you dedicate yourself to this fascinating hobby with genuine passion and determination, then there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to discover a coin worth millions that's been hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone observant enough to recognize its extraordinary value. So please, take what you've learned here today. Go check every penny you own. Start coin roll hunting if you haven't already. Join the online communities I mentioned. Invest in proper equipment and education. And most importantly, never stop believing that the next coin you pick up could be the one that changes everything. Thank you so much for watching the Liberty Coins Hub. If you found this video valuable, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss future content about rare coins and valuable varieties. Share this video with anyone you know who might have old pennies lying around, because you could literally help them discover a fortune. And remember that in the world of numismatics, treasures are still out there waiting to be found by people exactly like you who have the knowledge, determination, and vision to recognize extraordinary value hidden in the most ordinary places. So get out there and start searching, because your life-changing discovery could be waiting in the very next handful of pennies you examine.